Okay. All right. So yeah. So now we're in France. You were talking about you didn't have enough money for the hotel.
Oh.
So would you just stay in the train station or?
Close to the train station, I guess. It was pretty freaky.
Where did you sleep?
I didn't, I couldn't sleep. I had to sit up the whole night to catch the next train to go to Cherbourg.
And then
Is it going?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh. Okay. So I arrived at Cherbourg and went on the ocean liner Queen Mary. No, I'm sorry. That was SS America. SS America, and it was much more modern boat than the Queen Mary was the first time I went over. And then I went up on deck and a gentleman said, "Have a smoke?" Offered me a smoke. I said, "No, thank you." And then he said, "Would you like to have some coffee?" "No, thank you." "Tea?" "No, thank you." And then he started to say, "Oh, where are you going to?" And I said, "Boise, Idaho." "Boise, Idaho." That's what people all said when I said I would go to Boise, Idaho. I started to think, my goodness, it must be just a little western town with a boardwalk and some horses hitched to it. Where do I end up? This is horrible. No, nobody could believe that I would go to Boise, Idaho on that boat. And they started to feel kind of sorry when they figured out I was a Mormon. And they said, "Oh, usually there are lots of Mormon missionaries on the boats. Let's hook you up with those missionaries." And we went to the purser and he looked up and there was no missionary on the boat, not a single missionary. But there was a girl from South Africa and she was LDS. And so they looked up Nita Crichton and we became pretty good little friends there on the boat. She was another convert and she wanted to go and live with the parents of the missionary that converted her in Salt Lake. So we decided we should travel together. She didn't want to go up to Boston with me to visit my friends. She said she would like to go to the mission home in New York and wait for me there. And that's what we did. I dropped her off at the mission home, a very beautiful place, right on Fifth Avenue next to Grand Central.
New York
Park.
City.
Yeah.
This was New York City, right?
Yeah, yeah. And I went up to visit my friends in Boston and then went to pick her up. And on the way to Boston, you know the story about.
Well, you need to tell everybody in your posterity. This is why we're doing this. You tell the story.
I dropped off Nita and was pretty late to go and catch my train in Grand Central Station. Was very cheap. I knew that if you buy the ticket already in Switzerland, it would be much cheaper. So I had to convert that voucher into a ticket before I could go on the train. And they never wanted to do it for me. And I said, "Where is the station master?" I said, "Wow, I'm going to get business here. I need to have that ticket." And then, all of a sudden they handed me the ticket. And I ran over to the train. And the whistles already blew. The train already made chuk, chuk, chuk. And I went up on the last little stair going up to the last coach with all my heavy luggage. And that place was pretty crowded, but there was one empty seat, and I asked, "Is this seat taken?" And everybody just shrugged the shoulder. Nobody knew. So I put all my clothes up on the coat hangers and put suitcase under the seat, beside the seat, above the seat. Finally sat down, and then here came a young guy telling me, "Sorry, my seat." I was very embarrassed, apologized, and grabbed all my stuff and didn't dare to sit down for 3 coaches. I went through 3 coaches at least till I had courage to sit down again. And then another young guy said, "Sorry, my seat." I couldn't believe it. And then it happened even a 3rd time. Can you just imagine? I still can't believe it. And then I kept on going further and further and ended up behind the engine. Well, I can't go any further. And in that last coach, there were a few seats empty. And I saw that young guy, and I thought, no way, with an empty seat next to him. I decided to go and sit next to this old gentleman, a little grandfather-style man. And the train slowed down over the Harlem Bridge, and it looks pretty dismal to look down into that part of the city. That gentleman looks down and said, "Who would ever want to live in New York?" And I said, "Oh, I would," because I had lots of good times visiting New York when I was working in Boston. And I would go and stay at the Swiss townhouse that was like a YMCA for the Swiss girls from Switzerland. And I felt pretty safe there and had fun taking in all the shows and sites and museums. And this old man says, "Well, tell me one place you would stay in New York." And I just dropped off Nita, from the boat and said, "Oh, 973 Fifth Avenue. That's a beautiful place." And when I said that, Louis, that young guy in front of me, got up, reached for his briefcase, looked for a letter, and then turned around and said, "I'm sorry, I overheard you. 973 Fifth Avenue, isn't this the LDS mission home?" And I said, "Yes." And then I saw his tag. He was a Mormon missionary. And it was his last day of his mission. He was on his way to get released from his mission in Boston. So you can imagine we sat together pretty quick and got acquainted.
And he was in New York because he was visiting his brother, I guess, before, and wanted to teach him the gospel.
Yeah.
And so Heavenly Father definitely put you together on that train. As a miracle.
Oh, I think so, yeah.
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 And we'll talk more about your trip over to Idaho the next time.
Okay.
But what do you think about that, leaving your family and your home and coming to America and then meeting your husband?
Well, I didn't know that would be my husband.
Yeah.
I was on the boat. I joked and I said, "Oh, I'm a Mormon nun."
Oh.
A Mormon nun. I will never get married. I didn't feel like getting married anymore. I thought, well,
You had so much painful experiences. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing. And here's Susie's beautiful garden.
It's so beautiful after the drought.
So pretty.